I've spoken before on this channel a long time ago about IPPs, or imprisonment for public protection sentences, which were indeterminate sentences given to serious offenders who posed a significant risk of serious harm to the public. These sentences, however, were scrapped in 2012, while there were many still serving IPPs, and even though the IPPs were scrapped, those on such sentences were left in jail. Now, the issue with IPPs was that there were many, and still are many, people in jail for offences that would normally warrant, say, a year or two, but who have now been locked up for more than 10 years. And let me be clear, people who are a genuine danger to the safety of others, such as paedophiles and rapists, who would commonly receive suspended sentences or very short jail terms, were never really issued with IPPs, but instead they were generally dished out to people who may have been involved in a robbery, even if no one was hurt or injured. And I don't want to take away from the fact that some of those on IPPs are a danger to the public, but these sentences were used for offences such as stealing a bike. Granted, in some cases violence was used, but sometimes nowhere near the same level of violence was inflicted as would be in the commission of a rape or child abuse. Back in 2019, it was reported that now 29-year-old Wayne Bell was giving up hope on his release after spending 12 years in prison on an IPP for a bike theft and an assault. He was sent to prison at just 17, just before the IPPs were abolished. He was told he will have to serve at least 4 years, and even though he's faced a parole board every 2 years since then, he has had his parole denied every time. At one stage, there were 6,080 IPP prisoners in England and Wales, which made up 7% of the total jail population at the time. IPPs were abolished because they were being used far more widely than intended, and in many cases for low-level crimes. The IPPs were brought in by former Home Secretary David Blunkett, who, of course, has since expressed his regret. But those who were on IPPs were never re-evaluated and their sentences amended, so they have literally been left in jail to rot. Well, Danny Weatherson from Scotswood in Newcastle is set to be released after spending 17 years in prison for trying to steal a coat and a mobile phone, after he was given an IPP in 2005. When Weatherson was convicted and sentenced, he was told by the judge at Newcastle Crown Court that he must serve a recommended 15 months in prison before applying for parole. But he's still currently in jail 15 and a half years later. A sentence which his family have said has taken a huge toll on his mental and physical health. Even when Weatherson is released, some decade and a half late, he will still be under the watchful eye of the law, as he must remain on tag for some time. A parole board spokesman said, "We can confirm that a panel of the parole board has directed the release of Daniel Weatherson following an oral hearing. Parole board decisions are solely focused on what risk a prisoner could represent to the public if released, and whether that risk is manageable in the community. A panel will carefully examine a huge range of evidence, including details of the original crime and any evidence of behaviour change, as well as explore the harm done and impact the crime has had on the victims. Parole reviews are undertaken thoroughly and with extreme care. Protecting the public is our #1 priority." Now, I believe strongly that if you do something wrong, if you break the law, you should suck up the consequences. However, consequences must be proportionate, and any misjustice must be amended as soon as possible. Robbing a bike and a coat, or rather trying to rob a bike and a coat, certainly doesn't deserve 17 years in prison, especially when rapists and child abusers can get months. There are still thousands of people serving IPP sentences, even more than a decade since they were abolished, which, as you can imagine, would upset and anger some people, which could of course be why some of these prisoners have been denied parole. But I think the parole board are completely overlooking the mental health strain somebody would be put through whilst being jailed for a low-level offence and then having their sentence extended time after time after time, and should, in my opinion, bring in a psychiatrist to speak to the IPP prisoners to see if they are acting up. If they are acting up, of course, because of their sentence, or if they genuinely are a danger to the public still, which, compared to how dangerous the streets are these days, makes most of their offences look like nothing in comparison. It's a very sad state of affairs when someone's locked up for most of their life over such menial low-level offences.